How was it that such a fragile jewel as the Italian chapel came to be built on an uninhabited island in Orkney off the north coast of Scotland? The story is a fascinating one. The British fleet was based in Scapa Flow in the early days of World War II, and although the entrance to the bay was blocked by sunken ships, a German U-boat taking advantage of an exceptionally high tide slipped through and torpedoed HMS Royal Oak, which sank with the loss of 833 lives. It lies there to this day and is now an official war grave. As well as being a terrible tragedy, the sinking of the Royal Oak demonstrated that Scapa Flow was far from impregnable. The First Lord of the Admiralty, Winston Churchill, visited Orkney and devised a plan whereby the eastern approaches to Scapa Flow would be blocked permanently by concrete barriers. This phenomenal engineering project took 4 years to complete, and the result was 4 great causeways, now known as the Churchill Barriers. They link Orkney's mainland and the South Isles of Lambholm, Glimpsholm, Bury and South Ronaldsay. They are regarded as one of the greatest engineering feats of the Second World War. The work was done by construction company Balfour Beatty. At first the workforce was British, but it became clear very quickly that this mammoth task needed more labour. And so it was that more than 1,000 Italian prisoners of war captured in North Africa were brought to the tiny islands of Orkney early in 1942 and installed in purpose-built prisoner of war camps and put to work casting huge concrete blocks and craning them into the water. In the centre of the camp, one of the prisoners, Domenico Cocchetti, produced a statue of St. George and the Dragon made from barbed wire and concrete, which still remains there today. A concrete representation of the desire to eliminate all evil and all wars. However, in September 1943, Italy capitulated to the Allies. The Italian prisoners of war requested a proper place of worship, and with the help of the padre, Father Giacobazzi, the camp commandant, Major Buckland, allowed them to build a chapel on Lambholm out of 2 Nissen huts. The work of turning the Nissen huts into a chapel fell to the prisoners themselves, using materials scavenged from the site. Cocchetti set to work painting the interior of the sanctuary. The end result is a work of art that is magnificent even to jaded 21st century eyes, and must have been utterly stunning to those imprisoned here in 1944. The altar and its fittings were made from concrete, as concrete was always in plentiful supply. The original gold curtains either side of the altar were purchased using the prisoners' own money. The wrought iron rood screen was made by Giuseppe Palumbi, who had worked as an ironworker in Philadelphia before the war. Whilst in Orkney, he fell in love with a local girl. He left a token of his love within the rood screen. The whole interior was lined with plasterboard, and another artist, Giovanni Panisi, was brought over from the camp on Bury to help Cocchetti paint the flat plasterboard of the nave to look like brickwork and carved stone. Stonemason Domenico Buttapasta led a team of POWs in building a facade out of concrete to complete the front of the chapel. The new facade had the effect of concealing the shape of the Nissen huts behind it and came complete with a belfry and decorated windows. Panisi moulded a head of Christ above the door and stained it red. The chapel was only used for a short time, and it was still not completely finished when they left the island late in 1944, but Cocchetti stayed behind to finish the font. The Lord Lieutenant of Orkney, Patrick Sutherland Graham, who owned Lamb Home, promised the Italian prisoners of war that the Arcadians would look after the chapel the Italians had created, and so it still stands today thanks to the work of the Preservation Committee, whilst all the other buildings on the site of Camp 60 have been demolished.